Today, I'm going to show you how to write code with LangChain Deep Agents code, or dcode, inside a governed NemoClaw OpenShell sandbox. The flow is simple. You write code using dcode, a terminal-based coding agent. Dcode uses Nemotron 3 Ultra served from Baseten through an OpenAI-compatible endpoint. And then the agent runs inside a NemoClaw-managed OpenShell sandbox, so teams get a controlled environment around where the agent runs and what it can access. That means developers get the familiar coding agent workflow they expect, while organizations get more auditability and control around the environment. First, I'll install NemoClaw using the public installer from the NVIDIA docs. The installer handles the CLI setup and then drops it directly into onboarding. When the onboarding menu appears, I'll choose option number 3, LangChain Deep Agents code. That is the dcode integration we want for this walkthrough. Next, NemoClaw asks for the inference provider. For this video, we're using Baseten for inference, so I'll choose 3, other OpenAI compatible endpoint. Baseten exposes an OpenAI compatible model API, so first I'll paste the Baseten base URL from their documentation. Then I'll paste my Baseten API key, and finally I'll paste the Nemotron 3 Ultra model slug from the Baseten docs as well. Now the model route is configured, dcode will run inside the sandbox, and the model calls will go to Nemotron 3 Ultra through Baseten. Next, I'll choose the sandbox name. For this, I will do dcode demo. Now, NemoClaw shows the configuration before provisioning. Everything seems to look good. I will confirm this. For resource profile, I'll choose option number 6, OpenShell defaults. For an average demo workload, the defaults are enough. Next, it'll ask you for the policy tier, for which I'll choose balanced, because it gives us a practical default for coding agent work while still keeping the sandbox governed. On this screen, I just need the balanced defaults are enough. Once that is set, NemoClaw provisions the OpenShell sandbox and prepares the dcode runtime. Now that the Deep Agents code sandbox is live, I'll first just want to verify its status. I'll do NemoClaw decode status. It looks like everything is good to go. Now I'll connect to the sandbox with this command, NemoClaw decode demo connect. Now we're on this screen, which means we're in the terminal inside the environment. I'll quickly check that dcode is available, just making sure. Looks like it's installed. Then now I'll create a small workspace for the coding task that we're about to test. So I'll make a new folder and cd into that folder as well. Once inside this folder, I'm going to create a tiny Python project with a basic add function. In addition, I will add some unit tests where it expects a subtraction function that does not exist yet. So we have both those things. And now let's just test our unit test to see how it runs. We can see that there's a failure. This failing test gives dcode something real to fix. Now I'll start dcode from inside the sandbox, which is as simple as typing dcode. We can skip the setup steps for now. And now, instead of pasting one giant command into the terminal, I'll use it how a developer normally would. Open dcode and then paste the task. So for the purposes of this, I will say, hey, inspect this tiny Python project, fix the failing test by making the smallest reasonable change, run the test, and summarize what changed. So we're going to let dcode with its Ultra 3 do what it wants. It wants to create the subtract function, which I'm going to approve. It's going to test, so I'll approve that as well. This is the actual model round trip and how a developer would be normally engaging with a terminal-based coding agent. Approve, ran 2 tests, and passed. We could see the whole execution process of dcode. Now, I want to run the test suite myself to verify the results. So first, let's exit dcode and go back to our terminal. Here, Let's run the same Python 3 unit test command. And there we go. We ran both our tests and both our tests passed, which means that the new code that dcode added has the code we need in order to pass. And just to verify the code itself, we can now see the subtraction function in that file. This is a tiny example, but it proves the workflow. The agent can understand the workspace, make a code change, validate it, and summarize what happened. The other important part is the environment around the agent. This is not just a coding agent running directly on my laptop. NemoClaw gives us a governed OpenShell sandbox around the dcode runtime. So let's explain this further. First, I want to exit out of my terminal and back to my running terminal. And first, the command that I'd like to show is NemoClaw decode demo policy explain. With policy explain, we can inspect the policy context for the sandbox. It shows us things like the active presets, approval and remediation behavior, and support boundaries. And the next command, policy list, which is shown here, can show us which policy presets are configured, which we took care of when we did the onboarding process. And finally, with logs, decode demo logs tail 80, just want to see the last 80. And with logs, teams get a more auditable environment for running coding agents. To summarize, that is dcode running inside a NemoClaw OpenShell sandbox with Baseten inference. Developers get a familiar terminal coding agent, while teams get a governed, auditable environment around it. Thank you.